This conversation is being moderated by Matt Ruddy, and Matt is an independent consultant working in the arts, education, and diversity. You can also find him oftentimes outside on the trail with his rescue pup Nala, hanging out in his camper van, and maybe even headed out on the trail on his mountain bike. So I'm going to turn things over to Matt. Matt, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm so glad you could be here. And I'm just going to turn things over to you to moderate our conversation with these great guests.
Eileen, really good to be here and excited to be able to have a conversation with a few other people who we've had a chance to chat with and realize that kind of the fundamental thing that drives us, the thing that really helps us reset ourselves and kind of clear our heads and make our way through the world is getting outside, getting on a bike, being out in nature, and just pushing ourselves to find ways to explore and enjoy being outside. And so whoops. I think a phone just made a sound. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, exactly like Aileen said, my name's Matt. I was in K through 12 classrooms for nearly 17 years, and I stepped away to work on some independent consulting so I could help try to foster and facilitate change within school systems and organizations that wanted to tackle everything from arts and education to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I do want to, I'm going to first pass things over to Analise so that she can introduce herself and say hello, and then we'll jump into some questions after that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Analise Cleopatra, and I'm the co-director and subject for Pedal Through. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you all for watching our film and for just sharing with me. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yep, I was going to ask Annalise to pass it over to Syren, but I want everybody to get a chance to meet and to hear from Syren as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Syren Nagakyrie, they, them, and I'm the founder of Disabled Hikers. We're an organization building disability community and justice in the outdoors.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in. We don't have a ton of time, but hopefully we can cover some legit distance. And I think the question I want to put forth for the three of us is what first brought us to the outdoors? And I want to step back and let the first person who feels like going go.
I'd say the first thing that brought me to the outdoors was just being invited. You know, I moved to Portland and it was a thing to do there, and not so much here in the swamp, but I just got invited on hikes and got to see waterfalls, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And we just have to do it anytime the sun is out.
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up as a sick and disabled kid, and I was also poor, so I didn't have a lot of options for entertainment or activities or recreation. So I really developed a love for just sitting outside and enjoying nature and watching the animals and the plants. And then in my mid-20s or so, I started visiting local parks, going for walks in the woods. And eventually I enrolled in a herbal education program, and that was my first real structured introduction to the outdoors. And it really kind of fed my interest in experiencing nature in small ways, but it also really challenged me to explore how I really felt in and about the outdoors. And that just kind of started me on my path of experiencing outdoor recreation.
Yeah, agreed. I think one of the things that really first drew me to the outdoors, and now being a little bit older, I realized what a complicated task this was. I grew up one of four kids in a family of six, and my parents, bless their souls, had this big blue family tent, and we would throw it in this old Ford Econoline van, and then we would camp in the summers up and down the West Coast, up into BC and areas around that. And when I think of how much I need my gear, how much I want things my way as a camper now, between like a camper van and meals and the Coleman stove and all that, I have no idea how they did that for 4 kids. I have no idea how they decided over and over again on purpose to drag us out into the woods so that we could explore and hike and see things and do all sorts of stuff like that. And I think that what I've realized living in a couple different cities now is that the woods are where I go when I really just want to either move my feet, pedal my bike, breathe a lot, and not be inundated with the sounds of a city. Just being able to like hit the reset button, clear my head, and try to get things right again. So one of the follow-up questions I wanted to add to that, it sounds like for each of us, there are stories that are directly tied to family and friends. And it always sounds dreamy. It always sounds ideal to just disappear into the woods for a while. But realistically, there's a wide range of barriers that people face in terms of being able to enjoy the outdoors safely, fiscally, and in all sorts of other things. So one of the things I wanted to ask each of us is what were or what are some of the barriers that we face, our friends face, or our families face in being able to enjoy and participate in what it means to really get outdoors and into nature?
Syren, do you want to go first this time?
Keep switching
Sure.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, of course, physical accessibility and lack of information and resources was a big barrier. It's really difficult to find accurate information about trails in general, and especially information that considers, access needs for, people who are disabled with diverse types of disabilities. That information is really kind of non-existent. So even just starting out, like I didn't know where to look, what I could do, what outdoor recreation opportunities there were for me, what I needed, any of that. I had no clue. So I really had to teach myself. And then I quickly realized that, there was a lot of ableism in the outdoor community, and every group I tried to join was either just kind of ignorant about disability or really downright hostile. So that was something I really had to learn how to work around and how to address. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Syren.
I would say for me, education and access for sure. I remember before I got invited to do this amazing bikepacking trip, I was talking with a friend and I was like, man, I just really want to go camping, but my schedule never syncs up with my friends. And he was just like, oh, well, you could just go by yourself. And I'm just like, what do you mean go by myself? You want me to go in the woods by myself? Like to me, I just felt like there were so many things I needed to know to be able to do that safely. Like if something happened to me, I know that my dad would be like, well, why did you go to the woods by yourself? Like, So I just felt like I needed more information on the process of like, even like things like leave no trace and, how to hang your food for bears and things that I feel like people who grow up in the environment or who have gone camping with since childhood, like almost take for granted, like knowledge that like it seems everyone should just know. But if you don't know, then it just seems really intimidating and almost foolish to attempt to do these things. Yeah. So being able to do this bikepacking trip with people who are so much more experienced and seasoned, knowing that I was going to be safe and also gaining the knowledge to do it on my own and bring other people with me, I felt like was really important.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I think there's a range of different things that make it difficult to understand either what you're getting into or where to go or how to approach it. And I think a very real thing that is worth talking about, because I know everybody just got to see 2 fantastic films, including Pedal Through, which involves a lot of courage and taking a lot of risk and doing things that are uncomfortable. Particularly in Oregon and in other places as well, I think that there are dueling realities. There's the reality of whether or not the outdoors is welcoming for people of color or people who are different in a wide variety of different ways. And then there's the actual experience of what exists. And I think that because getting outdoors means often stopping off at the supermarkets and shops to pick up firewood and groceries in smaller towns. I think that there is apprehension, particularly for communities of color, because at times we're never certain how we'll be received. And so I do think that there is a difference between deep backwoods camping, where you might not have access to a lot of resources, and campground camping. And having been in Oregon for 9 years now, I know that there's apprehension and there's concern for communities of color. But on the opposite end of that, I do want to say that when it comes to booking a site at a built-in proper campground where you have amenities that you need, I would say by and large, more often than not, I'm pretty proud of the way camp hosts and camp neighbors and people reach out and help each other when somebody needs a little bit more firewood, or if it's something as simple as borrowing a few more eggs for breakfast the next morning. I think that one of the things I want to actively encourage is, particularly for communities of color and diverse communities and people coming from different backgrounds, is if you're just getting your feet wet when it comes to camping, book a couple nights at a proper campground. And I'd be surprised if you weren't also surprised at how welcoming and communal and neighborhood friendly a lot of the different campsites are. I know that we're in an odd time right now, and we're navigating different levels of apprehension and anxiety, but 9 years of camping in Oregon, I would say by and large, especially at the state forest and campgrounds in Oregon and Washington, there's been a lot of camaraderie. There's been a lot of positivity. There's been a lot of people who are just genuinely happy to see each other. And I'm going to use that to transition to my third question, which is, where do we see hope and opportunity for helping others get outdoors in terms of doing outreach and advocacy? And I'm going to jump in first, so I can definitely let our two guests have the last word. There's a wide range of Black and brown-led nonprofits and other organizations and groups that want to take more of these trips. The biggest thing is people showing up to support. Some of the biggest things are resources, transportation, showing up when you say you're going to show up. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to look to our neighbors and partners and other nonprofits. And you know what? If it means using your van, which I do quite a bit, if it means helping people get access to everything from sleeping bags to tents to all that other stuff, I think I would want to ask everybody to remember like how good you felt the first time you really got immersed in being in the outdoors, and whether or not you have enough time to spare and borrow some resources or lend some resources to helping some kids or a family who might not ever have had a chance to experience that, to see what it's like to get out to the coast or out to Mount Hood or out to all these other places. And I guess I would promise you that the reward of seeing people's eyes open to that for the first time will more than enough pay for itself. But that's my pitch. Let's all roll up our sleeves and figure out how to get more and more people outdoors in a way that they feel supported and safe and can appreciate kind of the amazing things that we've all had a chance to appreciate. So I'm going to leave that open for whoever else wants to jump in.
So I think that, in many ways, disability is still left out of a lot of conversations about diversity in the outdoors. But for me, that means that there's tons of opportunity for us to, still get out there and really make some real meaningful change. And, there's also tons of nonprofits and organizations out there who are building more inclusive programming that is really meaningful and impactful. And I think supporting them is really important. I also want to see the conversation kind of expand to include more diverse experiences of disability and have more conversations about how to support people in the outdoors from where they are at and whatever their access needs are. I'm really I'm most hopeful just about the disability community in general, because everyone I meet is so amazing and so resilient and so committed to the community and to each other and making sure that we have what we need and can have the experiences that we want to have. And that's just, that's really meaningful to me and gives me a lot of hope.
Oh, thank you, Syren.
Thank you. I would say invitations and empathy.
Yep.
So that's that same person who I felt silly after talking to because I didn't know how to camp by myself, like they also lent me a tent. So if you have resources, sharing them can be really helpful because there's a gear barrier, you know, and no one needs all their gear at the same time. So if you can help someone have that first experience that will lead them to getting their own gear, then that's a really that can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And you know, just empathy in not everyone has the same experience as you or the amount of experience as you do. So if someone is trying to learn more and you know, experience the same joy that you are, like just be conscious of how you might be dismissing them by
Hmm.
not understanding why they're not where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Don't let too much of that like wilderness snobbery creep in.
yeah, yeah. And also, yeah, just bring people along. Invitations, you know,
Yeah.
extend them even if people aren't ready. Let them know that it's still open, and maybe the second or third time they'll come out and
Hmm.
get to enjoy these outdoors.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think um, I managed to drop that into the chat section. I think invitations and empathy could be the outdoors theme for quite some time. Like we could operate on that for a while. So um, I think one funny question to ask is Annalise, I did get a chance to see Pedal Through several weeks ago, and there are just so many like bright points and high spots and moments. We're talking all about the joy that the three of us get from being outside and experiencing those things.
Hmm.
What about let's take maybe 30 seconds each. What about those trips where you were like, you know what? Maybe I can't mess with this anymore. Maybe it just there was a little bit too much rain. I fell off my bike one too many times, or just the meal I tried to cook was just an insult to culinary arts in general. Um, I'm gonna throw that in both of your directions. What were some of the hard trips?
I think on that last leg of the trip, we were when we were trying to get to the bar in Oak Ridge, it was
Mm,
so wet and cold, and we had already been wet for like almost the entire day before.
yeah.
And you know, you would think that this part would be easier because we were on the road, but I was just like, what if my bike breaks down here? What if I gotta knock on somebody's door? Like, I don't know how they're gonna respond to that. I look like a dude in the dark. Like it was real. That was probably the most stressful part of the trip.
Yeah.
But then we got beer, so.
There you go. There you go. I think I would say yeah, most of the camping horror stories are tied to either inclement weather or loss of food. If I didn't check something in the backpack or the cooler the right way and it like ended up going bad, like just the favorite thing you brought along that you wanted to cook and you didn't seal it up in the bag right, and now it's drenched with
Oh,
water.
yeah.
So yeah, that's that's it. Siren, what about one of the hard trips?
Yeah, I mean, for me, some of my most challenging moments have been like going to the national park and all of the parking areas near the trailhead are closed. And, so I have to park like way down the hill and then hike up to the trailhead. And by the time I get there, I'm too exhausted to go out on the hike. Or, I do all my research beforehand to go out on this trail and I get there and none of the information was accurate and it's way harder than I expected. And I can't finish it and I have to go back. But, that kind of stuff, I feel like, I mean, that's what inspired me to start Disabled Hikers,
Sure.
to change these experiences so that, they're different for the next person that comes along.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. So I think with that in mind, it's funny, even when we're sharing about the hard trips, there's a little something to be learned to dig out of all of it. So the last one I'm gonna pass around through the trio is what's the stuff that keeps you going? And I'll jump in because I see people thinking about it, like what is it? I think one of the things that keeps me going is when some fellow cyclists invited me along to ride. I think it was Mount St. Helens, And I got out there after dark, and one of my buddies just said, "Trust me, I picked out a spot for you. Put your tent there." And he goes, "When you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll be glad. You'll thank me." And I could hear a little bit of water rushing, so I put my tent up. I was exhausted. I went to bed. And when I got up the next morning, I was about 15 yards away from the edge of this embankment that went down to the river, and was honestly one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. And I had no idea my headlamp didn't light it up enough at night, but he kind of picked it out for me so that I would have a really good morning wake up. And I was just like, oh man, we live out here. Okay.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
For me, I would say, like even after taking those gnarly falls, like I feel like I've become addicted to getting back up. It really is mental exercise for me, biking. It really brings me peace to like just the act of moving forward. And when you're mountain biking, you have to, it demands presence, which creates peace. And I think that is what gets me. And yeah, the best part. And also, it feels like flying.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really keeps me going is when I go out on a trail with another disabled person, and it's, maybe their first time out because it's the first time they've had someone else to go with them who really gets it.
Yeah.
And just watching them have that experience that I love so much for the first time is just so, so wonderful and so rewarding.
Yeah, for sure.
You're an inviter.
That's right. Absolutely. Let me see if I can sucker this little lady into a shot here. Come here. So one of the things that keeps me going too, as we wrap up our time, showing Syren and Analise before. This is Nala, the rescue pup that Aileen mentioned in the biography. And there's probably nothing better than seeing her big dopey face when we're riding along a trail. I ride, she runs, and she's not really made for the city. Anytime we camp or get out on some acreage, she becomes her best self. So that's one of the things that keeps me going.
Hi, Nala.
There we go. So, Aileen, I'm not sure where we're at on time, but that has basically been our little roundtable. I hope everybody had a chance to hear a little more, learn a little more. And there you go. There you go.
I learned a bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, glad to. She's a good one.
Great to have a little puppy in the camera and give us that motivation to get out there on the trail. And Analise and Syren, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your stories and being here to share your time with us tonight.